everybody, welcome to my most recent live update talking about the new California Dream for All program. Super excited to have everybody here. So my goal today is to really cover from soup to nuts everything you need to know to make this program valuable for you, and really to figure out, hey, is this the right move for me to make? And if so, what steps do I need to take to make those moves? I have a live audience on multiple platforms. So if you have questions on any platform that you're on, please do me a favor and just post your question in the comments so I can receive comments from Facebook, from YouTube, from Instagram. So anywhere that you're at, LinkedIn, anywhere that you're watching, feel free to post a comment. I want to make this as interactive as I possibly can as we are really helping to teach and educate how this program is going to work and whether it's the right thing for you. So I've got a lot of things I'm going to cover. I'm going to dive right in and really give you everything you need to know to make this happen. So first of all, the California Dream for All program, quick recap. I covered this a fair amount during my presentations, and I want to make sure that I'm giving valuable information without being too repetitive, but I need to be clear. What is the Dream for All program? How does it work? How do I get in there? And so I want to cover that. Before I go too far, I want to introduce my team. So you might have been invited by myself or Gustavo or James. We're all able to help you. We're all looking forward to taking great care of you. And we all understand this program very, very well and want to serve your needs. So for those of you who have not paid attention and don't know what this program is, it is a shared appreciation loan, meaning that you are getting 20% of the purchase price as a loan from the state of California. And that 20% you never pay interest on. Yeah, you never, ever pay any interest, but you are paying back the state a percentage when you sell the home. Now, this part gets super confusing. I've talked to so many people. I have a lot of qualified buyers on this program, and many people misunderstand, like, John, so I'm paying back the state the money they gave me and 20% of how much the price of the home has gone up. That seems unfair. It's not. Okay, they're not getting 20% and 20%. They're simply getting 1/5 of what the house is worth, 20%. Think of it like you were buying a house with your friend, and you and two friends went in together and bought a home. So each of you buys 1/3 of the home, and one of you pays cash and the other two take out a loan and they make payments on the loan. Well, great. Then the person who paid cash, they paid for 1/3 of the price of the home. Therefore, when you sell the house, they get 1/3 of whatever the house sold for. Well, that includes the 1/3 they put in cash, plus 1/3 of the appreciation. It's all one number. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, so if the price of the home went from $500,000 to $700,000, then I owe the state back 20% of the $200,000 it went up, which is very, very true. But you also have to simplify the math by simply saying, I owe the state 20% of what the house is selling for, which means I owe the state $140,000. How did that come up with that math? Because they gave you 20% of the $500,000. So they gave you $100,000, and then you owe them 20% of the $200,000 it went up, which is $40,000. So they get their 20% of the whole pie. And so that's as simple as it is. The truth is, it's one of the most expensive down payment assistance programs that are out there. Now, I'm not saying that to talk you out of it, but I'm saying it to talk you out of it. I'm trying to make it clear there are better ways to borrow money for your down payment, but every one of those ways comes with a higher monthly payment. So you have to decide, is the cost worth the benefit? Everything in life is a cost-benefit analysis, and you have to make that decision to say, is the cost I am paying worth the benefit that I am getting? It gives you the biggest amount of down payment assistance of any program that I know of that's out there, and you make 0 monthly payments towards that chunk of money, but you pay back a large chunk to the state. Whether you sell, whether you refinance, or in 30 years when you finish paying off the mortgage, you're paying back a large chunk to the state. So this is really a graphic representation here of how the payback works. But I think the simpler way that I just said it is an easier way to explain it, which is whatever the house sells for. In this case, the house sold for $640,000. Then you owe the state 20% of that entire thing. because they gave you 20% to start out with. So in this case, you owe them the entire 640. So we're talking about $128,000, which is right here. 640. Here we go, 128. The Dream for All payback is $128,000. It's that simple. What the state does is they take that money and they recycle it. They'll give it back to somebody else in the future. The problem is that we don't know how much money is going to get put into the program. And so each time one person pays back, they're not going to launch the program again to offer one person the money to use next time. They got to have a big enough pie to make it worth the effort. And so we're hoping that the state's going to continue contributing money every single year. And if they do that, this program will last into perpetuity. It'll become what's called self-funding. It's kind of like a lot of scholarships at college that are self-funding. There's enough money in the scholarship program that they can pay out the money every single year, and the money continues. Probably a bad example because that's more about interest earned. But the fact of the matter is, in this program, as people pay back their money, that money becomes available for somebody else. So the state is not making any money off of it, but you do pay them back when you sell, when you refinance, or in 30 years when you pay off the primary mortgage. So helping you understand this, basically when you sell the home, whatever you're selling the house for, the state takes that and they keep their 20% of that total cost. When you refinance, you do get to refinance once. Now that's a really, really important thing to know. You only get to refinance once. And so if you refinance, because rates right now are at 6.5 and you refinance when they drop to 5.5, you can refinance again when they drop to 4.5. But at that time, the second time you refinance, you have to pay back the state, which makes your payment go up because now you owe the full balance as part of your primary mortgage. And sometimes that's actually the best plan. And I want to pause for a minute because I know a lot of you who are watching this have a lot of knowledge already about the program, and I want to add some extra tidbits in here. And really, one of the important things for people that get into this program to think about is, why do I want to refinance down the road? Then you have two real big reasons why. Either A, because I need to lower my monthly payment, which that's a very important and critical component of home ownership, is the ability to lower your monthly payment by refinancing down the road. But sometimes, and for a lot of you, I can afford the monthly payment, John. So I don't need to refinance in order to afford the monthly payments. I need to refinance so that I can own my home faster. Maybe I'm lowering my interest rate so that I can pay more towards principal. Many people look at shifting to a 15-year loan when they refinance because it keeps your payment the same, but it puts more money towards principal and less of it towards interest, so that you own the home faster. Now, how does that apply here? Because maybe you'll want to pay back the state the first time you refinance, because that way they stop getting any appreciation. That way they have the ability to take advantage, you have the ability to take advantage of all of the appreciation from there forward. And so it's important that as you work on this loan, you're working with someone who has the knowledge and the education of how not just this program works, but how the mortgage market works, and helps you strategize. And to be clear, I'm interviewing for that job. I want to be your lender. That QR code right up there above my head to the left, to the right, I don't know, to the left, is the way to start the process with me. I want to be your lender and I want to help you move forward in this process. The reason I'm talking about all of this is because if you don't have the right advice, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can save $200 a month by refinancing to 5.5 instead of 6.5. But maybe you would have been better off waiting until rates dropped a little bit further and putting it all together into one loan, buying out the state and paying off the Dream for All loan. So now you get all of the appreciation going forward. And for the same monthly payment as you're paying today, you now are paying towards owning the home instead of only paying towards owning a portion and still owing the rest of the money to the state. So hopefully that helps, but you'll pay it off in 30 years. When you finish paying off your primary mortgage, you have to pay back the state. There is no avoiding paying off the state. Death, taxes, and paying back your Dream for All loan. Those are the three requirements in the world. All right, so is it a good idea? There's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea. I'll give you a lot of examples. Give you a lot of examples of why I think it's a good idea and why I think it's a bad idea. In previous videos, I've gone through these all one by one. I'm not going to bore you with that. What I'm going to tell you is, if you can afford to buy a home with your own down payment, or if you have down payment money from mom and dad, and you are willing to part with that money, you're way better off doing that than doing this program. And I can help you with that as well. But just recognize this is not free money. And you're going to be in a free for all when it's time to utilize your voucher, because there's going to be a bunch of other people who have the same time frame, have the same waiting period in a limited time to use their voucher. You're going to be competing for very few properties. All right. So how do I get online? Okay, well, I haven't updated the slide because expected launch, we know the dates. Okay, I'll go through and share with you the dates in a couple. Well, actually, I'll tell you right now. It's April 3rd. So on April 3rd, the portal is opening, and you will be able to reserve your spot in line. You're not reserving the money. You're putting in a request for your voucher. You have until Monday, April 29th at 5 p.m. That's when the portal closes. If you don't have your request put in by Monday, April 29th at 5 p.m., you're out of luck. You're not getting any money. You have no shot at getting the money. If you have the money in there, excuse me, if you have your reservation in there, then you're going to get into the voucher lottery. And I'll talk about the voucher lottery in a minute. All right, so let's go here really quickly. Okay, lottery system. So reservations are going to be accepted in April 3rd through the 29th. Vouchers will be issued, I think, somewhere in the May-June timeline. Okay, I'm going to go through CalHFA's information that they had provided, but the simple thing is that they have to validate every single person who they select to prove that person is a first-generation home buyer. I think that's going to take upwards of a month. So I think the vouchers aren't going to get issued until late May or early June. And they did make it clear, CalHFA made it clear, you're going to have 90 days to shop for the home. So you're going to be able to get your dream home. You're going to be able to use the dream program to get your dream down payment of 20%, but you have 90 days to make that happen, and not 90 days to close escrow, 90 days to enter into escrow. And then if you don't do it, it turns into a pumpkin. It's like Cinderella at midnight, okay? The chariot turns into a pumpkin at midnight, and the coachmen turn into mice, and you lose your access to the money. So you have literally 90 days. There is a date and a time that will be printed on your voucher when you get it, and you have to have a reservation by that date, okay? Now, CalHFA said before that they're going to leave room for somebody if they change properties. And my current understanding is that deadline of 90 days is the deadline of 90 days. So if you get into escrow on the 30th day, and 2 weeks in, now you're on day 45, and you find there's an inspection problem with the home, you can cancel that home and you can still use your voucher, but you have 45 days left to get into a reservation on another home. But if you get into reservation on the 89th day, I don't think they're going to let you reuse your voucher. So if you don't buy that home, if you cancel your purchase after your voucher expires, you've lost your voucher. So there's still that same problem that we had last year, which is at a certain point, people are going to be forced to proceed on a home that they may not have otherwise continued to purchase after seeing the inspections and seeing all of the disclosures, because you don't have a choice, because otherwise you lose access to your voucher. So it's something to be aware of as you're planning ahead. You want to be ready early. You want to start getting an idea of what's out there. I've got a buyer portal that you can utilize, and I'll actually show that to you in a little bit as well, on ways you can start looking for homes and ways you can start figuring out how to find a home and what price ranges are in your neighborhood and that kind of thing. Obviously, you can use any portal you want, Zillow, anything like that. It doesn't really matter. You just need to be doing the research, and you'd be figuring out what regions you want to live in, and you really need to start deciding who you want to use as a real estate agent. Now, if you don't have a good realtor, I know amazing realtors up and down the state, and as I do your pre-approval, I'll be able to connect you with an amazing real estate agent. But you're going to have 3 months, basically from early June, maybe late May until August, to find a home and get in contract on that home, or your voucher goes to somebody on the wait list. Okay, so we'll talk about the wait list in a couple minutes. First of all, the voucher system is going to be distributed based on the geography you live in when you apply. Not where you're trying to buy, where you live in when you apply. And so this is a geographic representation. The rural areas are getting 4% of the money. And those are the rural areas, both of these spots of rural areas I'm talking about. Capital Region, 6%, Central Coast, 6%, Orange County 8, San Diego 9, Inland Empire 11, Central Valley 10, Bay Area 21, LA is 25%. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more, and for some of you, it's going to be very, very sobering to see it in this way. This is the number of vouchers per region. So the first thing you're seeing is each region name. I'm going to take the Bay Area as an example. Last year, the Bay Area got 19% of the money, and this year, because they represent 21% of the state, they're actually going to get a bump. They're going to get more of the money than they got last year. Now, they expect, the state has said, they expect to draw between 1,700 and 2,000 winners. Well, I'm using those numbers, 1,700 to 2,000. The second highlighted column says, if you're in the Bay Area, if you are part of, and let's make this bigger so you guys can see this a little bit bigger. It's a little bit bigger. All right, there you go. Perfect. So vouchers per region, you can see, oh, I need to get rid of my banner over the top. Hold on, let's get rid of that. Bye-bye. All right, now you can see it all really well. So you can look in the far right side and you can see the name of the county. So if you say, well, gosh, I'm not really sure, John, I'm not sure if I'm part of the Bay Area or not. Am I part of the Bay Area or am I part of the Central Valley? Am I part of the rural areas? This gives you a complete breakdown of every single county that is in every single region. And it tells you what percentage or what percentage of the vouchers you're going to get and what that means in people. So here's the sobering part. If you are in the rural areas, which I'm going to go back one page here, I'm going to show you what the rural areas are. So rural areas are all these counties here, Alpine, Amador, et cetera, all the way up, okay? If you are in a rural area, which is this huge amount of geography, the top of the state and the foothills, that entire huge region, you are going to have a total of 68 to 80 people in that entire region who are going to get a voucher, okay? That's a bit discouraging. I mean, I hate to say it. I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but that's a sobering number. But the reality is, if somebody's going to win, why can't it be you? Every single week, people do the state lottery, and they want to win the $78 million that comes, or the $492 billion that's coming from the Super Lotto. But guess what? One person out of hundreds of thousands of people are going to win. Now you say, well, maybe it's me. You have a way better chance to win this than you have to ever win the California State Lottery. So don't get too discouraged, but I do want you to understand the numbers. The state expects over 20,000 people, that they expect to put in a reservation for this program. And less than 2,000 are going to get it. So we're talking about less than 10% of the people. And in some regions, those numbers are going to be way off. So that's why I compared side by side. For example, the Central Valley and the capital regions are going to get impacted the most. They had the most usage of the program last year. So the capital region, El Dorado, Placer, Sacramento, and Yolo counties, 16% of the money went to those four counties, even though only 6% of the state's population lives there. So we're talking about almost 3 times the amount of the population that got a share of the money. Therefore, there's going to be way more demand for the money. Why? Because of house prices. So let me put this back here and let me share with you a bit of what I'm learning actually, maybe there's a better way. Is that a better way? Yeah, maybe that's a better way. Okay, so I'm going to share with you some case studies of what I've been running across. I've had many clients in the Los Angeles area that are struggling. And they're struggling because they're saying, John, I fit right in here. I'm at the income level. I make $120,000 a year, and I want to buy a home, but I can't find anything at the price I want. I had a client I talked to last week that the area that she wants to buy in Los Angeles County, she's saying, John, I got to spend at least $700,000 to buy the house that I need. But I'm looking at the math and I'm saying, well, based on your income, the highest I can get you is maybe $550,000. And she goes, there's nothing out there at $550,000. And it's the challenge of the prices of homes in the region. And the fact is that in Los Angeles County, there is a lot of very, very expensive homes. Then there's inexpensive homes that are in neighborhoods that you might not want to live in. And then you have everybody in the middle that says, well, I make a decent living, but I can't afford to live in this county, but I can't move because I can't commute to my job anymore. And so that's a big, big struggle. And so I see a lot of challenges in getting people to actually find the home once they get their voucher accepted. The reality is most of the people that I'm talking to are saying, you know what, John, I'll just take the voucher now. I'll just put in my request for the voucher. And if I get selected for the voucher, then I'll move forward and I'll try and find a house at the $550,000. And I'll pray maybe that I get a pay raise by then. Or I pray maybe I can convince my best friend to co-sign with me. Or I pray interest rates go down and that I can afford a more expensive home. And I don't blame my clients for feeling that way. I don't blame any of you for feeling that way. But the reality is a lot of people who are going to get vouchers, especially in these high-cost counties, these high-cost regions in the Bay Area, in Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, they're going to get a voucher and they're not going to succeed at finding a home because there's very few homes for sale right now. And the homes that are for sale, they're not necessarily the home that you want to buy, or they're outside of your price range, or they're too far of a commute away. And so the state has created a backup list. They're going to create a backup list. So for every region, for the number of people that are in that region, they're going to have an equal number of people on the backup list. So in the Bay Area, they're going to have between 350 and 420 winners, which means they're going to have another 350 to 420 people who are on the backup list. Now, I think that in a lot of areas, that backup list is going to be dipped into quite a bit. I think in the Central Valley and in the Capital Region, that backup list isn't going to get touched almost at all because the average earner can afford the average home in the Central Valley, in the Capital Region, once they have that extra 20% for the down payment. So this is really critical, and each region is going to be a little bit different. Now, here's the trick. The trick is you can buy anywhere in the state. You just qualify for a voucher based on where you're living now. But you can take that voucher and you can use it anywhere in the state with no restriction, except that you have to two things: meet the income limit for that region you're moving to. So I talked to somebody who lived in Santa Clara County and wanted to buy in Alameda County. And the problem is, even though it's the same Bay Area region, each county has different income limits. And their family income was too high for Alameda County. So they were going to get a voucher, and they're hoping they can find something in Santa Clara County, but the truth is they are going to end up looking in Santa Clara County because their income is too high to go in Alameda County. And the piece that's the moving part to this is the income limits change every year around June. Yeah, the income limits are updated by the federal government every year in June. CalHFA has previously updated their income limits in early July. So technically, that client who says, well, I make too much money for Alameda County, but I'm going to get a voucher anyway, we're kind of banking on the fact that the income limits go up in July and that they can actually meet the income limits for Alameda County and be able to proceed in buying a home in Alameda County, but they have a short window to buy because they have to buy between the date that the income limits go up and their 90 days of the voucher. So it's threading the needle. But in a lot of those situations, we're going to see those people not be able to successfully complete the purchase. And those people instead are going to go, those vouchers are going to go to the wait list. And so it's really important to understand that that's a dynamic that don't give up hope. Now, if you're not on the wait list, we need to start talking about other options. And for everybody that I'm talking to, I'm discussing even today, what are your buy it now options? Because you have a pretty small chance, 90% of your likelihood you're not going to get selected for a voucher. And then if you get a voucher, depending upon your region, you might not be able to find a home that suits your needs. For a lot of people, they actually have a big amount of down payment, but they aren't allowed to use it. And that's where you may want to consider, hey, maybe I should switch up to a traditional loan, and I can help you with those traditional loans as well. All right, let's keep going here. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to post. We've got about 30 people currently on multiple different platforms. So if you have questions, post a comment on the platform that you're in, and that will show up directly onto my screen, and I'll be able to answer those questions or address those questions. All right, so you must be below the income limits for your region. CalHFA publishes the income limits, and we'll be able to yep, here we go. So I can show you right here CalHFA's income limits. Income limits. If you haven't seen them already, you can find them on CalHFA's websites. But the income limit is, I had it and then I closed that screen. That's what I get for closing that one. Income limits right here. Cannot exceed the CalHFA income limits. And they are based on the county that you're in. Here's Dream for All's income limits. So here are the numbers. These numbers, well, you know what? I'm actually a little nervous now because it says these are Dream for All income limits effective January 18th of 2024. The reason why I said the income limits change every year in July is right here, which is this is the income limits for CalHFA's loans. And CalHFA says, hey, these are effective July 7th of 2023. That is when the income limits are changed. Now, I expected CalHFA to update the Dream for All income limits at the same time as they update the rest of the income limits. Technically, they could not update them. So there is a chance those income limits are not going to change. But if you buy in a different region, you have to meet the income limits of the region that you're buying in, and it has to be a reasonable distance to commute to your work. That's critical. So if you live in Los Angeles County and you're trying to buy in the Inland Empire, well, it depends on what part of the Inland Empire you're buying in. And if you're talking about a 2-hour commute each direction, that's going to be hard for us to justify. Now, maybe if you're taking public transportation, maybe you have something that you can say, hey, I can do this and I can sleep on the bus and I hop on the bus in the morning or the train or whatever, maybe. But it's got to make sense. You cannot say, well, gosh, I work in Los Angeles and I'm going to buy a house in Fresno. That's unreasonable. That's not a reasonable commute. So you have to meet the income limits of the region that you're buying in. Your voucher is based on where you live today. But you can buy anywhere in the state as long as you meet the income limits of the region that you are buying in. And I can convince my underwriter that you are going to be continuing with your current job. Otherwise, you can find a new job, but you got to find the new job before you get the house. And that's another hack. That's another tip. If you're looking to relocate, you can get an offer letter from your prospective employer, and I can complete the purchase using the offer letter and showing that you've reported to work for your first day. I don't have to have a month of paycheck stubs or a year of paycheck stubs. So there's a lot of flexibility there where you get an offer letter, you find the home, you start work while you're in escrow, and then I can close escrow even if you don't have a long-standing history with that employer, provided the income is stable and predictable. It's critical you understand the income, nature of your income. If you are in car sales and you are moving from selling Lamborghinis in Los Angeles to selling Mazdas in Modesto, you like the alliteration there? Anyway, Lamborghinis in Los Angeles, you're making this much money. Mazdas in Modesto, you're making this much money. And so that's not stable income. Even if you went to selling Lamborghinis in Modesto, you're not going to sell as many Lamborghinis in Modesto as you were selling in Los Angeles in general. So we can't just assume your income is going to stay the same. But if you have a stable income, it's an hourly wage, it's a salary, you can transfer jobs. You can transfer from one company to another company. Start a new job. And in a lot of cases, we're okay with that. Just talk to me before you do it. Talk to me before you do it. That's the critical piece. All right, so let's go back to my presentation. Remember, guys, you have questions, feel free to ask me those questions. Why are you not pulling up? Hold on. Okay, there you go. All right, so you have to be below the income limits. Here's the mistake a lot of people are making, and I'm seeing this regularly as I'm talking to clients and talking to buyers. People don't understand. I am not simply taking your W-2 earnings from last year and saying that's what you earn. And sometimes the number is lower than what you think. Sometimes it's higher. And so you just have to understand that we can take a co-borrower off. I can ignore components of your income. I can ignore bonuses and overtime in some cases. But in other cases, I can't. I can't ignore the pay raise that you have that puts your salary at $180,000 a year. I can't round that down to a lower number. And I can't average with last year's number. I've got a lot of clients who have said, John, I was out of work. I was unemployed for 6 months. We were on strike. And so last year I made under the income limit. No, because we look at what are you going to make going forward. And depending upon the nature of your job, it's not as simple as what did you make last year. So you have to understand, I am the expert in helping you to walk through those rules. All right, you've got a question. Billy Cruz, let's see what you have to say. When my lender gives me an approval and the California Dream for All program gives to the portal, do I have to submit an address for the approval? And if I get the voucher, I can change the house I want to try. Okay, so Billy, I assume you're asking if you have to submit an address of the home you want to buy. And the answer is no. You do not submit an address for the home that you want to buy. You are submitting an address of where you live. So you're in the voucher system. You're going to prove to them where you live. You're going to give proof of residency so that they know where you live, because everybody wants to live in Los Angeles County right now for the purpose of getting pre-approved. So if you happen to be thinking about moving to Los Angeles County, you might want to make that move right away so that you're in the best region to get qualified. But the fact of the matter is that, and Billy, again, I'm not positive on where your question's coming from, so I'm going to answer it from both ways. If you're saying, hey, do I submit my own address? Yes, you submit your own address. If you're asking, do I submit the address where I'm buying? No, because you can't be in contract. You can't have found a home yet. You don't even know if you're going to get a voucher. You shouldn't even be writing offers because you don't know when you're going to get a voucher or if you're going to get a voucher. And so, yes, you can change what house you want because you're not telling them what house you want. And you can change the amount of money that you're approved for. So let's say that your lender said you're only approved for X amount of dollars. But maybe in some of the examples I gave you, I showed you, hey, the way I look at it, I can approve you for more. And you call your lender and your lender says, no, John, I can't go any higher, Billy. I can't go any higher. Then you can change lenders and I can pre-approve you even after you get your voucher and I can move you to a higher purchase price. So hopefully, Billy, that helps. Wow, we got a slew of questions. Now that we open the floodgates on questions. So Jeanette, hi, Jeanette. You said hi, John, if there are times that we ignore other jobs, should we file taxes now or should we wait until the Dream for All draw is done? Wonderful question. Wonderful question. Now, you're not going to love my answer. My answer is it depends. Okay, it depends. But why does it depend? The first thing I will tell you is if you're a W-2 wage earner, filing your taxes means nothing. Means nothing. Whether you file it or not, I'm looking at your paycheck stub, I'm looking at your W-2, I'm looking at what you made last year in each category. So I am, as your lender, because I'm interviewing to be your lender, so I'm assuming it's me. As your lender, I'm going to ask you not just for your current pay stub, but most of the time I want your pay stub from the end of last year, because that'll tell me how much money you made last year in each bucket. And then I'm going to average those buckets. And sometimes I'm going to ignore a bucket and say, okay, well, the only time we can use overtime is if the employer marks a letter that says this overtime is likely to continue. Well, if I never send the letter to the employer asking them to confirm the overtime is going to continue, then I don't meet the rules because I don't have a letter back that says the overtime is going to continue. So I get to ignore the overtime. And so that has nothing to do with filing your taxes, but it has everything to do with if you are self-employed. If you are self-employed, you do not file your taxes until you talk to me. I am now in charge of your tax filing. Why? Because if you're self-employed, you could buy a home using Dream for All without ever filing your 2023 taxes. Because technically, if you go on extension, you have until October 15th to actually file the 2023s, which means if your income is good enough from 2022, I can use your 2022 taxes and you never have to file 2023. But if your income wasn't good enough in 2022 and you file 2023 and your income is still not good enough, you lose the ability to get the money. You lose the ability to get the money. So, Jeanette, if you're talking about being self-employed, do not file your taxes until you talk to me. Now, get a draft copy prepared because I want to know what the 2023s would look like. But do not have your CPA or your tax preparer press send to the IRS. As soon as it's sent to the IRS, it's locked in. That is the calculation. That is your income number, and I can't change it. So what you need to do is you need to show it to me, and then we might decide you're better off going on extension. Or I might decide, I actually need you to file, but I need you to file with more profit, which is going to cost you more money in taxes. That's why we postpone until you get a voucher. So I'd pre-approve you based on the taxes I know you can file, but I don't want you filing them, because why should you file them and pay extra money in taxes when you might not get a voucher and you might not buy a home this year? So it's critical that you do not file your taxes until you talk to me, and that you listen to me when I say don't file them, or I say postpone, or I say file them right away. Every situation is going to be different. Hopefully, Jeanette, that answered your question. All right, next question from Snorlax. Can a lender ignore a portion of my income if my overtime, commission, weekly bonus, and monthly bonus is dependent upon my store's goals being reached? Yes, but it's all or nothing. And so back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, you would, Ricardo, I see your question. I'd like you to know what you're referring to. So I'll answer your question in a moment. I'd love for you to post another comment telling me what you're referring to. Like, are you self-employed? Are you a wage earner? And if I'm probably gonna answer it as self-employed, because I'm talking more to Snorlax right now about being a wage earner. So we are following Fannie Mae's rules. Fannie Mae's rules say that in order to count variable income, I have to have a history of that variable income, and I have to be able to document that it is likely to continue. So there's a form that we send to your employer that they fill out a box that says, is overtime likely to continue, yes or no? Is bonus likely to continue, yes or no? If it is likely to continue, and I see the history of it, I have to count it. But if I don't send the employer that form, then I don't have the required proof that says that you are going to have that income continuing. And so we're using the rule book to our advantage. And if I don't have that proof that says that it's going to continue, then I can only count your base. But if we need to count overtime and not bonus, now we start getting a little tricky situation, because it's the one form that I send that says to the employer, is overtime going to continue, yes or no? Is bonus going to continue, yes or no? And if I need them to check yes on one of them, I cannot tell them to say no on the other one. Okay, that's fraud. That's telling them to misrepresent something by having them fraudulently complete it. I like what I do for a living. I like being in this industry, and I like not being behind bars. So I will never commit fraud, and nothing I'm talking about is fraudulent. Telling the employer to fill out the form incorrectly, that's fraud. Okay, never, ever, ever will I do that. So there's a very, very big difference. So hopefully, Snorlax, that makes sense, because the fact is, if we, let's say they check that box that says, yes, your bonus is likely to continue. Although the bonus is based on you hitting your store goals, we have to look at the past and say, well, if they've been paid earning the bonus in the past, then they've been hitting their store's goals. If they haven't been paid the bonus in the past, they haven't been hitting the goals. So we always want to give you the reasonable benefit of the doubt that says if you've been earning it and it's expected to continue, we can count it. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, Ricardo, thank you for giving me the more thorough question. So you said, can you give us insight into how you play with numbers if we meet the income limits for the voucher process, but when we apply, we might exceed the income limits if the majority of the income is self-employed? Oh, I didn't realize there's a cutoff, so I can't read it. Self-employed dual income. I didn't know there was a maximum number of characters that will show up on my screen. So I think I got it. If there's something missing after what you can see on the screen, Ricardo, please put it in another comment. It also helps my YouTube algorithm the more you comment. So feel free. I'm only partially kidding. Okay, so how do I play with the numbers? First of all, we might just not have one of the borrowers on the loan. Now, there's major implications to not having a borrower on the loan and removing a spouse from the loan, and I'll explain those implications in a moment. But for example, if you are self-employed, there's a lot that we can do while you're filing the taxes, okay? There's a lot we can do with what type of deductions that you are showing, that we can show maybe how an expense is depreciated, because there's such a thing as one-time depreciation versus depreciating something over the lifetime of the asset. We can accelerate depreciation. So there's some things. I grew up in a tax preparation household. My dad was an enrolled agent. I was an indentured servant as a teenager, like we all should be with our teenage children, and forced to help my father at his business. So I did a lot of taxes as a kid, and I understand taxes, and I'm a student of the industry. So Ricardo, hopefully that that helps to give you some. I mean, obviously every situation is different. I cannot break the law. I cannot ignore something that is clearly your income amounts, but I absolutely can and will use a scalpel instead of a hatchet and say, well, how can I look at this a little bit different? And how can I adjust the numbers appropriately to come up with, because the key word in the guidelines is qualifying income. This is not about what is your W-2 income. It's not about what the maximum household income is. It's your qualifying income. And what you all hear the stories about people saying, man, I went to the lender and the lender said that I can't use that income. I have a second job and the lender said I can't count it because I haven't been doing it long enough. Well, in those cases, sometimes that works in our favor. So if you think you make too much money, don't assume you do. There are for sure people that I have talked to who make too much money and there's nothing I can do about it. Like there's nothing I can do about it. But your assumption that you make too much money in order to qualify before you talk to a professional like me who knows how to use a scalpel is where you're going to do yourself a disservice. So hopefully, Ricardo, that makes sense. Billy comes back with another question. If I get a voucher, go into contract, and I lock my rate through my lender and say my appraisal doesn't appraise and the deal falls through, do I still get to try on another house with the same voucher? So this came up during one of the CalHFA board meetings, and they said that they fully understand that one of the challenges last year was that someone followed exactly what you talked about, Billy. They got into contract on a home, the appraisal came in low, it fell through, or they had inspection issues, and they ended up not being able to use the money. And they said, we're going to make sure this year that doesn't happen. They haven't put anything in writing though, Billy. So am I going to tell you for sure? No, because I'd be lying if I told you for sure, no problem. But my expectation is CalHFA is going to say, look, you have to be in contract and reserved for the home that you close on no later than the voucher expiration. So you want to get in contract as soon as you possibly can. Because that way, if the first deal has the appraisal issue and you find that out 2 weeks in, great, you burned 14 of your 90 days. You still have the remainder of the time. You still have 76 days to find another house and go through that process again. That is my expectation. I have not confirmed that to be true. I am reaching out to CalHFA regularly and getting confirmation. For example, one of the things I got confirmation on the other day is that CalHFA said we are allowed to add or subtract borrowers after the voucher is received. So one example was one of my clients said, hey, I'm trying to convince my dad to co-sign and move in with me. And I said, great, then I'll approve you for the amount you're qualified for today. But if you get a voucher and you can get your dad to co-sign with you, we will add your dad and you can buy together at a higher price. Another client who said, John, I'm worried. I'm worried because we're right at the tippy tip top of the income. And what if my spouse gets a pay raise and now we are over the income limit? Can we take one of us off and just buy a less expensive house if we get the voucher accepted? So CalHFA said, yes. Yes, you can add, and yes, you can delete borrowers. Obviously, you can't change borrowers altogether because then it really isn't your voucher, right? Like then we get into selling vouchers and auctioning vouchers and kind of like selling organs. That's not really legal. Selling vouchers is not legal either. So you have to, I'm sure they're going to say, hey, you can add or subtract one person. You can't add or subtract both because then it really is a transfer of the voucher to somebody else, and that ain't okay. All right. So, Billy, I hope I gave you a thorough answer. My expectation is, yes, you can start over using the same voucher. That is not in writing, but I have every reasonable expectation that CalHFA is going to allow that. All right. Oscar says, if you get selected for a voucher and you're able to, that's really funny, Oscar. I answered your question before I saw the question. I didn't read it, I promise. I didn't try and preempt your question. But Oscar, you asked the question I already answered, which is, yes, you can add another qualifying person to lower your debt ratio. CalHFA confirmed that in writing to me, 100%. Yes, you can. I love the Q&A, guys. Please keep asking questions if you have them. That is the last of the questions. I'm going to go back and finish out. So yes, you can remove a co-borrower if necessary. Don't assume that your income is too high. And there is one more loophole. I love loopholes. Okay. There's a rule that was written for the trust fund babies, the people who have parents that have millions and billions of dollars, the kids of Steve Jobs who own homes or want to buy a home, and they get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in income from the family trust. We can count that income as income on the loan as long as the trust is making you payments that will last at least 3 years. Now, why does that matter? First of all, it matters because maybe we had together, you made too much money with you and your spouse. And so maybe we take one of you off the loan. I'll explain it again in a minute, what happens if we take one of you off the loan, because that's a big deal. But let's say we take one of you off the loan. And we, by the way, Billy says, thank you so much. Hold on, let's pull this up. I like sharing cool stuff. So Billy says, thank you so much. My wife and I are excited. Billy, if we've already talked, I'm super excited. If you're working with another lender, I'm only partially excited. I'm only partially joking there. I am happy for you either way. And anyway, and if we talked today, I'm sorry that I forgot, but I highly doubt we did. The good news is I've got a lot of people who are talking to me, and I'm really sharp on this program and how to make this happen for you. All right, trust income. You say, John, I had to take my spouse off. We're kicking your spouse off because the income is too high together. But your income with the one person, it's too low, and we can't make it work. And so what the heck are we going to do? Well, if you have a family member who has a living trust or creates a living trust, and that family member has a nest egg of money in that living trust, they can start making you payments out of it. And I can count it as income. There has to be at least 3 years of the money they're paying you each month in their living trust. So if your family member says, hey, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month out of the family trust, then I can count that as income as long as there's at least $36,000 in the living trust. Okay, so there has to be at least 3 years worth of those payments, but I can count that as income. So maybe it's an early inheritance from a grandparent. Maybe it's a situation where your spouse has a bunch of money in the bank and they'll pay you trust income. And now you're getting money from your spouse. You're not counting their income, but you're counting the money they're paying you as trust income. It's a little bit of a loophole that we can use to our favor. It's just got to be legitimate money that's paid from one person to you that is a family member. And there has to be coming from a trust account. Like the payment has to be from the trust, a bank account in the name of the trust. It cannot be your own trust. And there has to be 3 years worth of money in that trust to be paid to you. So hopefully that helps. All right, let's talk about what happens when you take a spouse off of the loan. Cal HAFA has a rule that I don't like. I wish I could change, but I can't. And so we have to deal with those things we cannot change. And this is one of those things. Cal HAFA says that if you buy a home, only the people whose names are on the home, on the loan, can have their names on the home. Now, why does that matter? It matters because of estate planning issues. It matters, let's be blunt, if you die and your spouse, your loved one, their name is not on your home, then it has to go through probate. Probate is expensive. Probate takes a long time to complete, and it's frustrating. This person just lost you, and now they're struggling to get ownership of the house that you guys really bought together, but their name couldn't be on it because together you made too much income to qualify for this amazing program. And so that is a rule that you have to keep. Only the borrower can be an owner until Cal HAFA is paid in full, paid off in full, which is another reason why you may think of wanting to accelerate the repayment and pay them back at the time that you do the actual refinance and get them paid off and get them out of your hair. But there is a loophole, and that is creating a trust in the name of the buyer so that the home is owned in that trust. And in that trust, you make your spouse the beneficiary. They cannot be a trustee. They cannot have control of the trust, but they're a beneficiary that takes over, a successor trustee that takes over when you're gone. That way the house transfers into your name because you control the trust. Transfers into your spouse's name because your spouse controls the trust. So this is critically important. Okay, critically important. All right, so Snorlax has a great question. Snorlax says, Snorlax 310. If I recently received a lender's pre-approval letter, should I get a second pre-approval letter to shop the rates? If the lender was me, no. If it isn't me, yes. I'm totally kidding. No, you should not shop an interest rate. Here's why. Because Cal HAFA's interest rate is Cal HAFA's interest rate. And so if I go here, I will show you right here. Every single day, Cal HAFA updates their interest rates. you can actually go, and I'll show you how to get there because it's super easy. So if you just go to, let me make this, I think it's big enough. Tell me if it's not big enough. You go to CalHFA, and from CalHFA's website, you go, so let's get rid of her question, and let's get rid of my banner really quickly here, and let's make this a lot bigger there. Let's make it like that. Perfect. All right. So I go to CalHFA's website right here under lenders and real estate agents. You're not a lender. You're not a real estate agent. Nobody cares. You can click the button. It's okay. You click that button, and it's going to take you to their rates and reservation page. On the rates and reservation page, you can click right here and say view today's rates. CalHFA's rates is CalHFA's rates. We are all going to have exactly the same rate on the day you lock. This rate changes every single day. So today you're looking at the CalHFA conventional with down payment assistance. So today, for most people, your rate is going to be 6.625. If today you had your voucher, you got an offer accepted on a home, and you called me, your lender, because I am interviewing for that job, and you said, John, I'm ready to lock. What's today's rate? Here it is. You don't even have to call me. Here it is. Now, we only have until 3 o'clock. CalHFA's system closes at 3 o'clock. Now, that's when we have to process it through CalHFA's system. My company and we need an extra half hour to get it processed. So therefore, we have to push the button by 2:30 in the afternoon. So if we don't push the button or lock your loan by 2:30 in the afternoon, you get tomorrow's interest rate. But tomorrow's rate is the same for me as it is for any other lender. We are all charging the same rate. The rate is picked by CalHFA, not by me. So hopefully that helps answer that question. All right, I got another question here. Jeanette says, thanks for answering. I have a W-2 main source of income. Also have a 1099. I will be filing taxes for both. Should I wait an extension if lender will just be using the W-2? Again, I think that it depends on whether you need the 1099 income. And remember, 1099 is not what the 1099 shows. It's what your Schedule C shows as the profit at the end, and we add and subtract a couple of things in the middle. So the math is not very straightforward. I would say if you want the ability to count both incomes, you're going to need to file the taxes, but don't file them until I look at them. Because otherwise, you might file it showing too much income or too little, and I want to make sure you have just right. This is like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. You want it to be just right. All right, let's switch this back here. Let's put back on my banner. Let's keep going. I'm getting good at this little editing thing. All right, so we talked about trust income. Let's keep going. First generation homebuyer rules. Okay, this is a big one. So first generation, I don't like that slide. I guess that's the best slide I got. Page down, page up, page up, page up. All right, first generation. For every application must have one person that is a first generation home buyer. So first generation, everybody has to be a first-time home buyer. First-time home buyer says you have not lived in your own home or a home owned by your spouse anytime in the last 3 years. Everybody on the loan must be a first generation home buyer. And first generation says, essentially, it says you didn't or don't have a chance to inherit wealth through real estate. It's that simple. You didn't or don't have a chance to inherit wealth through real estate. What does that really mean? It means the state is trying to help people break the generational cycle of being stuck as a renter. My grandparents were renters, my parents were renters, I'm a renter, my kids are going to be renters because we never have made enough money as a family to put a down payment. There's no money coming from the next generation to help with the down payment. We're going to be renters for the rest of our lives. That's what the state's trying to fix. Whether you agree or disagree with it, that's what the state is trying to fix. And so this rule very clearly says, look, with a lot of massaging, you simply have to say, at this moment in time, right now, your parents, if they're alive, cannot own a home. Or if your parents are deceased, they cannot have owned a home at the moment that they died. If that's true, if they don't own a home now or they didn't own a home at the moment they die, and you personally have had nothing to do with a home for 7 years, you meet the first generation rule. Now, the state added an extra bonus. Bonus? This is horrible for me to call it a bonus. They added an exception that is more appropriate for me to call it an exception. And that is for people who are in the foster care system. Okay. If you spent even a day in the foster care system, they said, look, Obviously, there were some challenges at home, and the parent-child relationship was strained at some point in time that you were not in the home and you were in a foster care environment. And so you automatically qualify as a first-generation home buyer. You don't have to meet the criteria of your parents not owning a home currently. I got 3 questions. Let's see what I got. All right. Snorlax says, should I allow my lender to submit the CalHFA voucher, or do I submit it personally? Your lender's not allowed to. You'll be submitting that. It's part of the requirements from CalHFA because you have to submit a lot of extra information. I'm going to go through this in a couple minutes. All right, Juan, how are you, Juan? You were there when Dream for All came out, lost 2 to 4 offers against the competitive market. Took us a full year to finally have keys to our home. Congratulations, Juan. Glad you did it. I did not wait for a second phase of Dream for All because it was less stressful than dealing multiple counter offers. John Lone King, that's me. If you don't know, props for your helpful videos for us first-time home buyers. Juan, super happy for you, super proud of you, super honored to be part of that journey for you. Ricardo says, thanks, John. I'm going to be sending my docs to start the process to you soon. Thank you, Ricardo. Looking forward to it. Scan the QR code right over there for anybody that wants to get the process started. Okay, so that is the first generation rule. Let's keep going because I want to share some of the new stuff. So let's fly through here. You can only put 5% of your own money down. I've talked about that. Cap of 150. I've talked about that. A lot of this stuff I've covered in a lot of my other videos. So if you're watching any of my YouTube stuff, you've seen all of this. I'm not going to take you too much time. Honestly, I'm going to skip all of this stuff because this has to do with how to use the money. But bottom line is, I'll actually share very quickly that you can use the money to increase your buying power. If you're saying, hey, I got a $400,000 pre-approval and I want to buy at a higher price, well, guess what? If you were only putting a small 3% down payment, now you can buy maybe a $500,000 home instead of a $400,000 home for the same price. Or you can lower your monthly payment, okay? So in this case, you're saying, hey, I'm buying at $500,000 and I'm putting a small down payment. My payment's $4,200 a month. But now I've got the ability to buy a home and put 20% down. Or better yet, put 15% down and put the rest towards closing costs. And now I can get in with almost no money out of pocket. Guys, I have clients last year. I had a client buy a $1.25 million home in the Bay Area, and they had zero money out of pocket. We paid for their down payment. We paid for all their closing costs. I even paid them back for their appraisal and their earnest money. So you can get into a home with literally no money out of pocket. Now, it's harder this year because that $1.2 million home last year, they got $240,000 of assistance. This year, you're only going to get $150,000. So it's a little bit harder at the high end, but it absolutely can be done. If you're under 80% of the area median income, you get a little bit lower interest rate and you only pay back 3/4 of the appreciation instead of 100%, and potentially a little less mortgage insurance. We talked about a lot of this, so I'm moving quickly. You have to have a 680 credit score. You have no idea how many people I'm talking to right now that don't have the credit score they need. You have until April 29th at 5 p.m. to register, and you have to have that pre-approval from me. So you need to get started now looking at your credit so we can talk about how to get your credit up in the next 7 weeks. Critical. Co-signers are not allowed, and it has to be a primary home. You have to occupy within 60 days. By the way, co-signers, what I'm referring to is people not living with you. So somebody who's going to live with you, that's great. Just talked to a client tonight at 5 o'clock, and he wants to buy a home. He's getting out of the military. He's moving back to his hometown, and he wants to buy a home, but his income's not going to be enough. So he's asking his dad and his best friend if they want to co-sign with him because they're both going to move in. He was going to have his sister co-sign, but his sister lives out of state. Can't do. But you can ask other family members to co-sign it or long-standing personal friends. And as long as they're going to live with you, that's great. If they're not going to live with you, no can do. All right. Bank credit history, your Chapter 7 has to be at least 4 years old. A Chapter 13 has to be at least 2 years old. Billy asks a question. Hold on here, Billy. Let's pull up. Will my wife's debt affect my DTI? Yeah, you guys should get a divorce. No, I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding. I was just making a joke. Billy, I didn't mean that. Billy's wife, I didn't mean that. I was just kidding. Okay. No, if her name is not on the loan. So remember, I talked about the whole thing about if you don't put your spouse on the loan, that's a bad thing because she can't be an owner of the property. But you don't have to count their debt. Okay. So that is not an issue if they're not on the loan. If they're on the loan, you absolutely have to count their debt. All right, another question. El Senor 2020, first generation home buyer. Thank you for the good information. High five. Congratulations. I'm happy to help. All right. Remember Elsinore. Elsinore? Is that what I said? Yeah, Elsinore probably. The tilde is missing, right? All right, Elsinore. Right up there. You see that QR code right up there? That's where you got to, I can't really show you right there. You got to scan that QR code in order to download my application. It puts a mobile app onto your phone. You can use that to walk you through the entire process of getting started and getting pre-approved. If you guys have credit issues, just know your bankruptcy has to be at least 4 years old if it's a Chapter 7. A Chapter 13 has to be at least 2 years old. All right, I want to get to the CalHFA stuff. All right, guidelines, yeah, debt to income ratio. I've covered this stuff before. It's 7-6 high balance loans are okay. You get to pick the property. Manufactured housing is okay if it's on a permanent foundation. Okay, so you can buy a home on a permanent foundation. Again, guys, I'm trying to get through a lot of the new stuff. And so this stuff I've covered in my videos before. How to prepare, get your credit score in line, save up for your earnest money deposit, your appraisal and your inspection costs. I'm going to do a lot more videos over the coming couple of months, talking, even after the vouchers are put out there, I'll be educating you on should you do a temporary buy down or not, educating you on the money that you need to have up front, and how much you have to plan for, and where does that money go, and inspections. What inspections should you do? Strategies. This is a big one. I'm going to do some videos on strategies to get your offer accepted in a competitive market, because you have to find a home and you have a limited time to do it. And so I'm going to be putting a lot of content out there. So even if you're not using me for a loan, you should feel really guilty because you're taking all of my free information without actually helping me pay for my kids' college education. Puppy dog eyes? I'm just kidding, not really. But I don't care if you're using me for a loan or not. Honestly, I want to help guide you. I want to help you, give you good information, and I want you to help avoid making mistakes. So please share this information with anybody and everybody that you know. That is the best thing you can do for me, is share my YouTube channel with everybody that you know to help them get this great information. But right now, you need to know your numbers. You need to talk to me about, John, how much money am I going to really be needing up front? And where should I be looking in price ranges and that kind of thing? And you need to pick a realtor to start narrowing down your home search. Home buyer education is necessary. Don't bother doing any of it right now. Don't do any education now. Do your education once your offer gets accepted. That's when you do home buyer education, not offer accepted. Once your voucher is selected, voucher selected, offer accepted. Once your voucher is selected, that's when you do the education. Don't do it ahead of time. It's not necessary. 2 types of education, but there's no rush. All right. I'm going to kind of skip this part, but what I'll tell you is that Elsinore, I see your comment. I'll post it in a second. Should I just buy right now? There's a lot of reasons to buy right now. A lot of reasons. Oops. Page up. There's a lot of reasons why you should buy right now. But the simplest thing to tell you is if you can make it work now, you're better off without Dream for All anyway. House prices are starting to move up again as interest rates are moving down. We've seen a lot of interest rate volatility. If you go back to my video in January, rates were at 6.5. And then my video in February, rates were at 7. And now my video in March, rates are back to 6.6. That's the manic nature of the industry right now. But what I do know is we've still got a lot of demand. A lot of people writing offers and buying homes. I have a client that wrote an offer tonight. He was looking at Dream for All last year. He didn't get selected. He didn't get the money for Dream for All last year in the Los Angeles area. He's been waiting all along, and finally he says, you know what, John, I'm ready to buy. I shouldn't have waited. I shouldn't have waited, and I'm going to buy now, and I'm going to just do a traditional loan. I'm not telling you you should do that, but just think about it in the back of your mind, because if you have the ability to buy, doing the traditional loan saves you a lot of money because you're not paying the state 20% of the appreciation on the home. All right, I'm going to dive into some of the rules right now that Dream for All. Oops, page up. Come on, John. I want to bring up Billy's or Elsinore's question. He said, I got my credit cards around 3.5 years ago. Would it affect me when filling out my application? So that's a great question. That really comes down to, actually, this is really important. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to make you have to stare at the big version of me. Wow, that was a really big version of me. Okay, so I had to look down there to see myself on video. The reality of credit is using the data to predict how well you're going to pay your bills in the future, and doing anything to an extreme is bad. Do not pay off all of your accounts before you let me pull your credit. Do not move money around. Don't do any of that stuff. Okay, we can massage the credit, and I have a simulator I can run through that gives you really good advice. So will it affect you? I don't know until I pull your credit. But what I do know is if your credit is too low, I have a simulator I can run that says, hey, if you pay down this debt, or if you open a new credit card, or if you pay off this collection account, or if you have yourself added as an authorized user to a family member's account, all of these different things that you can do that will allow you to maximize your qualification, which is really the key that I'm trying to do, is to help you figure out how to get you qualified. So Elsie, it's a great question. In general, having credit cards for 3.5 years is wonderful. The key is utilization. Utilization is the #1 killer of credit, okay? Utilization is the percent you owe compared to your credit limit. And it can swing up and down really easily by just having a month when you had a bunch of expenses and you haven't paid the bill down yet. But utilization ultimately tells the story of self-control. So I'm going to use I love parables. I'm going to use a very, very simple parable here, a story to explain. So if you were to take a 5-year-old to the dollar store, let's pretend it was back in the day when things at the dollar store cost $1. Can you believe things at the dollar store used to cost $1? You take a 5-year-old to the dollar store and you say to the 5-year-old, hey, here's $5, and they go out and they shop with their $5. Every single time they're going to come back with how many things? 5, because they have zero self-control. And so they have $5 to spend. They're going to find a way to spend $5. Well, that says that if I handed the 5-year-old $10, they'd find a way to spend $10 because they have zero self-control. So when your utilization is high, you are the 5-year-old in the dollar store with a $1,000 credit limit that you just had to find something to buy, and your credit is impacted negatively because it basically says next time you get somebody willing to give you any money on your credit card, you're gonna find a way to spend it because you have no self-control. So now people say, fine, John, then I just won't own. And by the way, I don't mean, Elsie there's clarifying, your credit is 760 at the moment. That's fantastic. I didn't mean to imply that you have bad credit. Pretty much reached everything on credit cards. I'm paying full. Perfect. I'm still going to use this. You gave me a reason to go down this road. So I apologize. I'll take your name off the screen so it doesn't feel like I'm talking to you. But I love this parable of the 5-year-old because it really is an important thing for you to share with teach your children this, teach your teenagers this theory, because we don't teach this stuff in school, and people don't understand how this matters. So I'm going to continue my parable. So the 5-year-old, you say, hey, you know what? Don't take me to the dollar store anymore. That doesn't prove self-control. That's like you saying, hey, I'm just not going to use my credit cards anymore. So if you say, hey, fine, I'm going to pay off my credit cards and not use them at all, you're not proving that you have self-control. You've paid it to zero, but you didn't tempt yourself. You're not using the credit cards. That will not help your credit score. That's like the 5-year-old saying, Mom, Dad, don't take me to the dollar store anymore. Okay, so instead of that, the way you prove, the next thing that you might say is, well, okay, then fine, I'm going to cut my credit limits. Like, then I can't spend very much if I lower my credit limit. That's like telling the 5-year-old, hey, you can only go to the dollar store with $2. They're still going to spend the $2. Plus, cutting your credit limit actually increases your utilization. If you owe $1,000 on a $5,000 credit card, people think, oh my God, that means I have $4,000 available to spend. That looks bad. I'm going to lower my credit limit to $2,000. So I only have $1,000 to spend. The bank will like that better. You just hurt your credit score because you took your utilization from 20%. You owed $1,000 on a $5,000 credit card, and you raised your utilization to 50% because you owe $1,000 on a $2,000 credit card. So saying, hey, I'm going to lower my credit limits actually hurts you. Saying as a 5-year-old, I'm only going to bring $2 to the dollar store actually hurts you. It does not prove you have self-control. The way the 5-year-old proves they have self-control is to say, okay, I'm going to go to the dollar store with $5 in my pocket, and I'm not going to buy more than 2 things. I had the ability to buy 5 things. I had the money that I could spend to buy 5 things, but I chose to only buy 2. Why? Because I understand self-control, and the 5-year-olds don't understand self-control, but you have to prove to the credit system that you do. So hopefully that's been helpful. All right, let me get back into here really quickly. All right, so I want to share with you some of the stuff that Cal Haffa is saying, and I want to be really clear on what happens from here, and we're going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes so I can get back to spending time with my wife and lovely family. All right, so we talked about today's interest rates. Here is what Cal Haffa came out with last week. I'm going to go over this quickly. Cal Haffa said, hey, the registration portal, and by the way, ask questions if you have questions about any of this stuff. That is what we're talking about. Oh, this is great. All right, I got to bring this up. So El Senor, yes, El Senor says he's self-educated, bilingual. I have 2 team members on my team that are bilingual in Spanish, and so se habla español. We would love to take great care of you. I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and all I can say is se habla español. So I clearly failed somewhere. But we absolutely can help you out. And I do have 2 team members who speak Spanish that will take great care of you. So I did want to make sure to bring that up. All right. So we talked about the counties. It is a random selection process. The selection won't happen until after the registration portal closes. So it's open from April 3rd through 5 p.m. on April 29th. Okay, so April 3rd to 5 p.m. on April 29th. You have to have your registration put in by that time, but there's a lot of things you have to do. So first of all, you work with me, you get your pre-approval letter, you create your account in the DFA pre-registration portal. You know what's funny? I've never actually clicked on that link. I wonder what happens. Let's do it together. Let me make this bigger so you can see it, because I have no idea if this is really a website. Let's see what it's saying here. Nope. All right, register for a voucher. Oh, it doesn't work. You can't click the button. All right, well, no need for me to make it any bigger. So that is the page. You're going to click here to register for a voucher and talk to an approved lender. In the meantime, that's me. I'm an approved lender, John King, interviewing for the job as your approved lender. All right, so if we're going back here to this right here. All right. So you're going to upload the following documents. CalHAF is going to want a lot of stuff. They're going to want your photo ID. They're going to want your proof of your address, some kind of a bill proving that you live there. Okay. By the way, El Senor, you are amazing. He said he posted my information. Oh, you want me to post my info where I can reach you? Absolutely, I will. First of all, I'll give that to you. And actually, I'll do it right now. I want to make sure you all have it because clearly I haven't done a good enough job of getting that to you. So here is all of our contact information. Oops, wrong one. Right here. So me, Gustavo, and James. James is Se Habla Español. He is my Spanish-speaking loan officer. So take a screenshot right now, guys, if you want. I'll get back to the CalHAFA website in a second. But if you want to get our contact information, it is me, it is Gustavo, or it is James. And we will all be willing to take absolutely great care of you. All right, so let's go back to CalHAFA. You need to upload all of these things, okay? Your pre-approval letter, your ID, your proof of current address, and your foster care documentation if you were in foster care, okay? You also have to certify all of these things, that someone is a California resident, that everyone is a first-time home buyer, that one person is a first-generation home buyer. You have to have received a pre-approval letter and that you meet the income limits where you're intending to purchase a home, that this is the only application submitted for this household. Critical that you understand this, because I've had so many people continue to say, John, can 2 of us apply for this program because we both qualify separately? It's 1 per household. So a household is literally an address. You are submitting your ID and your proof of current address. They're only going to allow 1 per current address, and you have to attest that all the information is true and correct under penalty of perjury. The voucher application is going to ask for your parents' information. For whoever is the designated first-generation homebuyer, we need their parents' information, including their name, date of birth, date of death, and current address. Obviously, if they have passed away, we want the date of death. And we need to submit it into the portal. You're not done. Okay. What happens is CalHAFA is going to use a third party that's going to randomly select the winners. Those winners are now going to be put through an audit process. They've hired a third-party audit firm that is going to double check to make sure that you didn't lie, or that you didn't misunderstand something, or that you didn't not know who your parents are. And so I said, hey, I don't know who my parents are. I can't tell you if I'm a first-generation home buyer or not. They're going to look for your parents. If they find your parents and they find that your parents are homeowners, you can't get a voucher. Okay. They're going to potentially ask you for more information, okay? So they might require information to establish the parental relationship, which may include birth certificates, school records, or hospital records. I've had a lot of people ask me, John, my parents don't live in this country. What are they going to ask for? I don't know. But what the fact is that they're going to want some proof. And so it might, I don't know if it's going to be something about your immigration papers. Honestly, I don't know. But I know that they're not going to let somebody just say, oh, I wasn't born in this country. They're going to double check and make sure. Okay, they've made it clear fraudulent applications will be referred or may be referred to the Department of Justice, so don't lie. Okay, when you find out, what they're going to do is they're going to email you and they're going to post into the reservation portal to say whether you were A, selected for a voucher, woohoo, start shopping, B, you've been waitlisted, or C, no voucher has been selected. If you're in this fourth category where they say, hey, we need additional information, you only have a limited time to give them that additional information. Excuse me. So if they tell you that, they can't wait forever. If they want a birth certificate, if they want other records, you better get that to them right away. I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, we found this person. We think it's your parent. We think they own a home. You know, we need to get more proof that that is or isn't your parent. You need to participate. You need to help, because if you don't pay attention and don't get it to them at a certain point, I'm thinking a matter of days, maybe a week, total guess here, they're going to pull your voucher. You never had the voucher. They're going to skip you and say, I got to go on to the next one. I can't wait for everybody forever. And then here they're saying voucher recipients have 90 days to shop for a home, enter into a purchase contract, and have their CalHAFA approved lender reserve their loan in MAS, which is CalHAFA's system. All vouchers must be reserved before the voucher expiration date and time. All right, so I got a couple of questions, guys. That's everything I wanted to cover. So I'm going to spend Q&A. I've got 5 more minutes to spend in Q&A. I've got a couple questions already. If you have questions, now is the time to post the questions so that I can answer them for you. Otherwise, once I kind of get done with that, answering those questions, I'm going to go ahead and end this and get back upstairs and spend some time with my wife and kids. All right, so Snorlax says, in the pre-approval letter I received, my lender capped the purchase price to $750, assuming 20% down, but he also gave me a second pre-approval letter, assuming 5% down for the purchase of $800,000. Should I ask for a pre-approval letter with the highest amount I qualify for using the 20% down option, or is it redundant since the max assistance is $150, which is 20% of $750? That was a great question. 2 things. CalHAFA has said they want us to give the pre-approval letter at the maximum amount that you think you're going to buy at, that you do qualify for. CalHAFA has also said we can increase your purchase price over the amount of money that you have on the initial pre-approval letter. So that letter does not stop you from going to a higher purchase price. So I think I've answered your question, which is it really doesn't matter because you're literally just getting your ticket, which I got to say, for some of my clients, they've said, John, I want to buy a house at $700,000, but you can only qualify me at $600,000, but I know I'm getting a pay raise in June. Then I'm giving them the pre-approval letter at $600,000. They're going to get it accepted or not. They're going to put it into the voucher portal. And if they get accepted, then they're going to have the pay raise and be able to go to a higher price at that time. So I hope that answers your question. I wouldn't think too hard about it. I wouldn't bother getting another pre-approval letter because there's so many assumptions going into this. I have a joke going on with my team that CalHAFA has asked us in pre-approving people now for a purchase that's going to happen in June, July, and August to really get as accurate as you could be if you were throwing darts at a dartboard that was on the other side of a football field, 100 yards away in a windstorm. It's impossible for us to be accurate. It's impossible for me to know if Snorlax, if you are at 750 or at 800, I don't know, because your income can change, the interest rates can change, so many things can change. It's impossible for me to know. And so you just need to understand that state has said to me very clearly, we won't cap them at what they put on that letter. You really just need to get put into the reservation portal so that you can look at getting your voucher. Then you can decide, hey, well, if I can't buy where I want to buy here, should I move to a different area? We can make all those decisions after you get your voucher. All right, I got one more question. And then if there's no more questions, I'm going to bump out of here. Enoch says, thanks for this great live session. Is there something I can do to make my chances of getting picked in the lottery system higher? Gosh, I wish there was. The fact of the matter is that there isn't. Like, as long as, it doesn't matter if you're the first one in there on April 4th or the last one in there on April 25th. Ooh, Vani asked a great question. I love it. Got a really good question here. Juicy one that's coming up. Don't leave. All right. So it doesn't matter when you apply. What matters is, I guess, what you could do to increase your chances is move to a county that has a high percentage of the state's population. That's your best way. Like, legally, I guess you could move, but that's about the only thing. Aside from that, there's nothing you can do, because aside from that, it's completely randomized. All right. Vani says, are new construction homes eligible? Yes, but you got to talk to the builder. There's a lot of moving parts to this. The first thing that you have to think about, excuse me, is does the builder's lender participate in Dream for All? Because if they do, that's great. You can get whatever incentives they have to offer when it comes to closing cost credits, because most new construction homes say, hey, I'll give you a credit of X number of dollars towards your closing costs only if you use my lender. Well, if their lender doesn't participate in Dream for All, it didn't help you. You didn't have, you don't get the benefit of the closing costs. The second thing you have to think about is some builders are giving really good interest rates. They're basically, they bought what's called a forward commitment. They bought a lower interest rate. They're saying, hey, come buy in my subdivision and we'll give you a 30-year fixed at a 4% interest rate or a 5% interest rate. That special rate only applies to traditional conventional loans, or maybe FHA as they're doing them. But this requires CalHFA does your first mortgage, and CalHFA does not pass on that special interest rate. Billy, I see your question. I'll cover that in just a second. So those are the first two things you got to worry about. The third thing you have to worry about is your rate lock. When is the home going to be done being built? And when you look at that process, can you lock a rate long enough to get the home built, and what's it going to cost you on rate lock extensions? So that's a whole other piece of it that is part of the puzzle that you're going to have to figure out. But yes, technically you can apply it to new construction. All right, Billy has my last question, unless something else pops up. He says, but John, did you really have to start with but John? Okay. But John, on the DFA form, it's asking for the amount that we are requesting. Will that change if we get a more expensive house? Yes, but it's just for the purpose of submitting into the voucher system. I have gotten confirmation from them that you can increase your price after you get your voucher. So it's asking for a number. I think they're trying to get averages and kind of see approximately how much they can project that people are going to be using up. But if somebody's qualified at $300,000, there's really very little chance they're buying an $800,000 home. If you're qualified at $650,000, might you go $700,000 or $750,000? Maybe. So that's kind of what they're looking at, in my opinion. But it's simply, again, we're trying to throw a dart across a football field in a windstorm. It is hard for us to exactly say what you're going to qualify for. So we try to round up. We don't know where interest rates are going to be. We don't know where your income is going to be. We don't know where house prices are going to be. And so we're doing our best to give a real number that is a little bit on the high end without getting you overqualified. In other words, without getting your hopes up saying, oh my gosh, I can buy the $800,000 home, when the truth is you only qualify for $500,000. That'd be inappropriate for us to do. So hopefully that helps to kind of explain that. Very quickly, I will end with this, which is the reminder of, let's go back here really quickly, that if you are ready to start the home buying process, scan this QR code, and it's the same QR code that's been up above. It takes you to the same place. And you can also visit CaliforniaDreamForAll.info, which is my website that gives you a lot more information. But really, most of the stuff that you're getting through YouTube is the best place that you're getting all of the up-to-date info. So, ladies and gentlemen, to be very, very clear, myself, my team, we are interviewing for the right to be your lender. Okay, I give away as much information as I possibly can with no expectation in return, but I do have an ask, and my ask is share my information, share my YouTube channel, share these videos, share with all your friends and family. And if you need a great lender, I'm interviewing for the job and I would love the opportunity. All right, gang, Billy says, okay, you're welcome, Billy. Everybody have a wonderful night. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.